some reason, I'm getting a lot of, shall we say, grief for using this bridge. This is a badass bridge, so I want to talk about this. You'll notice I have a couple of little Allens that I'm going to put in the to replace those screws with, so they don't stick out. I may just cut off these screws, I don't know. And here you can see my little brass shims that I put in, which are kind of staying in there. So how did I come to this decision? Am I pleased that they can't get the machining right? No, I am not pleased about that. These saddles don't sit on their two little shoulders, they sit on top of the threads. And here you can see a shot of one of my badass bridges with the screws taken out. You can see the misalignment on that screw and the saddle. I mean, it's plain as day there that misalignment is the problem. It says genuine Leo Quan badass bridge distributed by All Parts Music Corporation. So they bought the rights to the Leo Quan, and they're kind of copying his design. Now it does feel right. I've never done a metallurgy test on this to find out what it's made of, but it feels right and it sounds right. Okay? So what do I like about this bridge? I like the fact that it is intonatable and I can, whoopsie, I'm almost losing that one. Oh man. So that's that bridge. Now we'll just put it up here for now. How did I come to that decision? Well, let's start with some of the things I've tried. Have you ever seen this bridge? A Hipshot grand piano bridge. You'll notice this one looks different. It's made out of aluminum. It's very light. So if you look at this picture from their advertisements, you'll see what they did was put a spring on the screw, and the idea was that the spring would hold the saddle in that position. Well, that made two things happen. Number one, it's assuming that with this brake angle, which is pretty substantial, that these saddles aren't going to want to slide. I mean, it's on chrome. It's chrome on chrome, so it's slippery and all get out. Then it coil binds, and you only get half of the travel out of the intonation. And you can see this is the intonation left from my 2014 Melody Maker. It's close to what a lightning bolt looks like, but it ain't exact. So this was my solution. I flipped the screws around, got longer screws, and I put a nylock nut with a nylon washer on it. So I adjust the intonation from this end with a little Phillips screwdriver. This screw here, I had to turn down on the lathe so that the string coming off the saddle didn't hit the head of the screw on its way to the stop tailpiece part of this bridge. What else didn't I like about this bridge? Well, the strings between here and the tailpiece part are very inharmonic, in that there's this upper order harmonics going on all the time that drove me crazy. Now I know for some of you it wouldn't make that much of a difference, but it did for me. So what I ended up doing was putting foam underneath here. So there was a piece of triangular foam between the body and the strings, pushing up on the strings and actually contacting this whole bridge part here to stop it from resonating. However, this bridge just had this funny little thing in the upper order harmonics that I just hated. You know, I'm running a tube amp. It has asymmetrical distortion. because of that, it supports even order harmonics and suppresses the odd harmonic. And what I don't need is my bridge adding odd harmonics into the sound. It's not musical. It's not as musical. Good enough for rock and roll, not good enough for recording. Okay, let's look at something else. What else have I used? Well, here's a lightning bar. Is this bridge okay? Yeah, it was okay. This is the bridge that came on the 2014 Melody Maker. You'll notice it's got a little notch right here. Why is that? Oh, well, that string wouldn't stay in position. So what it kept doing is sliding over. The spacing was wide here and narrow there. I just couldn't stand it. I couldn't keep the string where it belonged. So I had to put a little notch in it to get the string to stay in place. You know, this bridge is heavy. This is not aluminum. In fact, if you do this, you find, oh, hey, wait. They're almost the same weight. This bridge here, well, the intonation is close. Good enough for rock and roll. It's not good enough for recording. If I'm playing with an acoustic piano, my intonation has to be perfect. The cleaner my amp gets, the more accurate my intonation has to be. Pretty much all of the stationary non-adjustable bridges don't work for me in a recording setting. I can get it close, but I can't get it right. So that precludes using these on any guitar that's going to end up in the recording studio with me. Okay? I mean, other than that, is it a good enough for rock and roll? Absolutely. It'll work great. Okay, what other bridges do I have? Well, let me show you something here. Here is an actual Leo Quan Badass, a patent applied for. This was on my 62 Melody Maker. Now, you can see I've just hacked the holy heck out of it. And why did I do that? The bridge posts are in the wrong spot on a 62 Melody Maker. So they have too much angle to them. And they're too far to the bass side. And the idea was that if you had a bridge like this, the strings could come over the bridge and go across it diagonally. Of course, it's supposed to be like this, but you see what I mean. It goes across it diagonally. Well, that doesn't work with one of these. The string comes out, goes across it diagonally. It's like clear off to the side or in the hole. I tried to make this one work, and it did. It worked for years. You can tell I played it for a long time. I had to grind away or file away underneath these strings to get more down angle. You'll notice that the strings are still way off to the side because this bridge is off to the bass side. But I made it work, and it worked for a number of years. But you know, when I wore out the frets and I had to refret, well, I needed to replace the bridge and the nut as well. So I did. This is another Leo Quan Badass, an original one. Does it have problems with the saddles rocking? No, absolutely not. It's machined very well. You can see how much my sweat from my hands has gotten after this bridge. Look at how much wear there is on this saddle. That's my hand wearing the brass off. That's why these are all rounded, is because my hand is just, I'm palm muting like crazy all the time with my hand. Okay, same thing though. Notice how the saddles are all machined off to the side. And like this saddle, it's so close to the edge that it would go ping when I bent it. So what I did was I grooved the bridge off to the side so that there was tension pulling the saddle this way. So then when I bent a note up, the saddle wouldn't ping because it was already in that position. But this was kind of unstable because the pressure of the string is clear over here off to this edge of the saddle, and this edge of the saddle doesn't have a lot of pressure on it, so they tended to want to move and make noise. But it wasn't bad. I played it for years. In fact, this bridge was on the Melody Maker until 2017, whereby I got another badass and put on it. But at that point, I plugged and drilled the studs to be in the right place. So then I didn't have to worry about the strings having to be off to the side of this bridge. So why am I doing all that? Geez, I can just go and get a Nashville, a Music City bridge. Well, you know, none of that existed back in the day. None of it. If I wanted a solution, I pretty much engineered it myself. I mean, these badass bridges from Leo Quan were really good. And these reproductions aren't bad. They're not bad. But the machining is off. Well, see, I'm about to lose another shim here. I got to thinking about these shims. Because there's side movement on these, see how much play there is on the side? You know, it's a good 10 thousandths. I think what I can do is take that out, and I'll make a shim that bends 90 degrees and then goes down the side. And it'll take that side play out, but it'll also mean that shim will never come out when I change the strings. So I think that's what I'm going to do, and that will be the, shall we call it, permanent fix for this bridge. Here's the original Gibson ABR off of, well, I don't know if it's ABR, it's patent, it's got the patent number on it from Gibson. Anyway, this one came on my 79 Les Paul. Why isn't this one still on my Les Paul? By 1983, the neck had twisted. So I had to pull the frets and shave the fretboard down. So, I could show you in a picture here. In fact, I'll take a picture of it and stick it. Oops. Cut. Battery died. Sorry about that. Stuff happens. Anyway, so on the 79 Les Paul, the neck twisted, and after repair, this bridge would no longer intonate. It would not go flat enough on the bass side. And it didn't matter which way you turned them, and had them flipped around the other way, and you try to adjust it, could not get the E string flat enough. I tried a Nashville bridge. This wasn't bad. The only problem with the Nashville bridge was it didn't fit the studs very well, and so it moved around. Plus the stud on the bottom side, on the treble side of the Les Paul, has always been loose. I can just grab it with my fingers and pull it out. I decided I was looking for a better solution. And one thing I wanted was locking studs. So this was what I did. I got one of these. This is a Stars Guitars brass bridge. And I took the OEM Gibson studs and I threaded the upper pin and I put a nut on that so that I could lock it. So that solved the problem of this post moving around. And that made the bridge really solid. Easy to intonate. Lots of adjustment on the intonation. When did I get this? It was in the 80s. It was on my 79 Les Paul until just 3 months ago. And I put another Nashville bridge on it. See, here's another Nashville bridge. So you can see that I've been through a lot coming up with solutions. And this, having a locking studs And this bridge on the 79 got rid of its intonation tuning problems. The goal here is to have stable tuning. My melody maker will go a whole set and not require retuning. If I start doing Stevie Ray, step and a half bends and stuff like that, if I start doing those, well, now I'm going to have to retune. But that was the goal. So I'm going to talk about top wrapping for a second. Why do I do that? Well, on the 79, what top wrapping did, well, it wasn't about having it play slinkier or anything like that. What it was about was the distance between the tailpiece and the bridge. When the length of the string goes from here to here, that distance of string now is harmonically compatible to the open string. So it's the same note, just octaves higher. The cool thing about the melody maker is clear up by the nut. The distance from the nut to the tuning peg is harmonically in tune with the string. It makes all the difference in the world, especially when you're recording. On a lot of guitars, if that's not true, if I'm in the studio, you'll see that I have a piece of foam between the nut and the tuning pegs to get rid of those inharmonic sounds coming out of that length of the string there, especially on acoustic guitar. But just know that my requirement for intonation is way above good enough for rock and roll. Okay, so this is the other thing I wanted to show you. Here's the bridge that was on the 53. And you can see, oh yeah, they're trying to intonate. So I don't know how well you can see that, but grind on the back here to move this one forward, and then grind this one in the front to move it back. And the whole point was trying to get the intonation to play accurately on that 53. And you can see where the holes were drilled and where the bridge ended up. The bridge had to be slid towards the bass side in order to get the strings to go up the neck. I mean, you can see that, right? So these holes were never in the right place on the guitar. I hope that clears up a few things. This was fairly accurate. I mean, the intonation of the 53 with this bridge was not as good as this. That's the history of bridges for me, and why I like the Leo Quans. Not only do they give me intonation adjustment, but they also don't have any weird high frequency odd harmonic stuff going on. They have a really sweet sound up in the high end, and I really like that. I hope that clears up this whole question about bridges. I have very stringent requirements, and certain bridges meet the requirements, certain bridges don't. My guitars spend all their time in the studio now, so everything has to be record ready. It's come to my attention that I may have been remiss in thanking the people that I'm gleaning information from so that I can get this 53 Les Paul done. So, here come the thank yous. Number one on the list, Ted Woodford, our neighbor to the north. Boy, oh boy, his videos are absolutely top-notch. If you haven't checked him out, do that. His stuff is technically accurate, plus it's a history lesson. Number two, Dan Erliewine. Over at Stu Mac, there are a gazillion videos. They're just little 10-minute shorts of techniques, and they are just stellar. Both Dan and Ted have incredible eyes for mixing up the color that they need to add to the color that's on the guitar to make the repair disappear. All right, somebody else that I watched a lot of, Rosa Stringworks. So his repair work is pretty good, and I really enjoyed his videos. I also watched Gorilla Guitar. Now that's a lot more heavy-handed. He advertises himself as the worst guitar repair on the internet or on YouTube or whatever. I don't know. We could be in the running for that. Okay, another one. It's mostly for acoustic guitars, and that's driftwood. They're just a couple of guys working in a shop building just world-class stellar guitars. Looking at guitars from different manufacturers, and the first thing they do is put it on a bandsaw and cut it in half. And then check out all the joints, the wood they're using, how they voiced the soundboard, oh man, I mean, you really learn a lot when somebody's willing to go out and spend good money for a guitar and then cut it in half. I've also looked at Big D guitars, Phoenix guitars, Andy Basin guitar. When it comes to electronics repair, I'm watching Psionic, Lyle Caldwell over at Psionic. He's does such a great job at production and just puts the camera absolutely in his way. So that's a list of people I've been watching. This is a video that I just felt like I had to do. Explain myself in my decisions. I picked a bridge for the 53 just from experience, thinking that I'll know I need a wrap tail for the 53 in order to keep it historically correct. And I needed the best wrap tail that gives me the best intonation adjustment, and with that I had to go with the Leo Quan Badass. Am I going to keep that? Don't know. Until I actually start playing the guitar and hearing how it sounds, it's like building a race car. You build a race car to all the best specs and as soon as you start driving that thing, you go, oh man, we have a lot of dialing in to do in order to make that thing work. Because there's all of the theory behind it, but that's not on the racetrack. And there's all the theory behind what should sound good on the guitar, but that ain't having the guitar in your hands, plugged into an amp, playing the material that you're going to play, and showing whether it has the versatility to do the full range of sonic requirements that a person needs when they're playing. And I am so looking forward to plugging that guitar in the first time. And you guys are going to be there for that. I have decided that I'm going to pull out the 80s rig. And it's going to be loud. And we're going to see how that 53 compares to my 62 Melody Maker, which has been my #1 guitar for decades. Thanks for watching Don's Manufactory. And stay tuned.